So there has been this ongoing discussion in UX writing about whether or not we should stop calling ourselves UX writers because it may cause some misunderstandings about our role, and many people agree on that and indeed stop calling themselves UX writers and start calling themselves, for example, content designers. But this is definitely something that we need to talk about, and in this video right here we will. Hello everyone, my name is Kat and I teach people about writing in tech, and on this channel you will find everything that you need to know about especially UX writing. So if you want to learn more about all of that, make sure you hit subscribe and ring the bell. So I frequently come across social media posts and even blog posts that say that the term UX writer is misleading because it suggests that we are only responsible for writing words, when in reality, we also do a lot of research, we also do a lot of strategy work, we manage communication, we design voice and tone guidelines, and so on and so forth. So every experienced UX writer will tell you that writing is only a very, very small part of what we do. And this is why many UX writers start calling themselves content designers or even content strategists, because they want to make it very, very clear to others that their job is not just writing. Makes sense, right? Yeah, to a certain extent. But there are a few big problems with that. So basically with calling ourselves content designers and calling ourselves content designers for that exact reason. So let's do this. Let's discuss why that is a problem. Now, first of all, I want to say why I am kind of passionate about this topic, because I am, and in this video it will probably show, so I might as well tell you right away. Now, I have a very personal relationship with writing. I started writing when I was a very young child, and I hope I will write my last words on my deathbed because I just love writing so much. I write UX copy for my job. I also write blog posts and social media captions for my job. And when I'm done with my job, I advise clients about how to write. And when I'm done with that, I sit down and write scripts for these videos and my online courses, which are also about writing. And when I'm done with that, I journal. So basically all I do is write. And I have to say that I have loved all forms of writing ever since, from writing poems to writing short stories up to writing UX copy. I have studied writing academically, and I have also studied how the masters of writing write. Let me tell you one thing. In absolutely no writing discipline, there is writing without a strategy and without research. Not even poetry. Even in poetry, you have experiences you base your writing on. Even in poetry, you have a strategy, a concept. Especially when you do writing as a job, when you do it professionally, research and strategy are always part of writing, no matter if you are a blogger, a journalist, a copywriter, whatever. Writing has always come and will always come with strategy and research. There is literally no writing without knowing what and how to write. And of course, your knowledge about how and what to write needs to come from research and strategy. So it is confusing to me that some writers feel the urge to explicitly point out to the world that we don't just write words, and that they even feel the urge to change our job titles so people acknowledge and expect us to do research and have a strategy before we write. So I never really understood the reasoning behind this whole we cannot call ourselves writers because we do so much more than writing. I mean, I want to ask you a genuine question. I have a very interesting book here with me. It is called On Writing by Stephen King. And in this book, he shares his relationship and his history with writing. And he also talks about his writing process. Now, Stephen King is a writer. He calls himself a writer. Do you really think he writes these books just by sitting down and letting the words flow from his brain through his hands onto the paper? Doesn't do any research, doesn't have a strategy about which information to provide in which part of his book? I mean, because he's called a writer, right? People just don't expect that from him, right? They just expect that he writes. So to be more clear here, and of course less sarcastic about this, why do we as UX writers make such a fuss about the fact that we plan and research and strategize before we start writing? It's nothing special. It is natural. At least it should be to us writers. This is my perspective. When you say writing, it of course includes research and strategy and collaboration and whatnot. It is just part of what writing is. But we want to discuss this, right? So there is a major counter argument against this perspective, and that says that the problem is not us writers, not our community, because we as UX writers, we know that writing comprises all of these other tasks as well. The problem is that our teams, our stakeholders, and even our managers don't know that we do more than writing. Looking at the title UX writer only, so we're not changing the name for us. We're changing it for them to have the right expectations and for them to involve us in strategy, research, and planning. So we call ourselves content designers because that should be clearer, right? Well, here's the thing. Don't you think that by calling ourselves designers, not writers, we basically agree with these people? Because we're saying with that, oh, we do more than just writing, so please don't call us writers, call us designers, because we work strategically. So designers work strategically and writers don't, and that's why we should call ourselves designers, not writers? Think about this for a second. Let that sink in. By changing the name, you basically agree that writers just write. And this is the paradox of this. Also, I would like to talk about these terms, content strategist and content designer, because we are people of words, right? So we should be very accurate with our choice of words. Now, many people treat the word content as a synonym for text or copy, written words. But content is not a synonym for text or copy. Looking at the definition of this term, the wider meaning of content is the things that are contained in something, and the more narrow meaning of the word content is the information or other material contained on a website or other digital media, including digital, video, and online content. So content also comprises video and photo content, which is why there is also this term called content creator, which describes a person who publishes visual content on social media. So looking at the core meaning of these words, content designer does not mean you design text. It just doesn't. People made that up, and it's actually quite random, because if we were very strict with this, content design would mean that you also design all the images and all the videos shown on your website or in your app, which I guess you don't. So what I'm trying to say here is that parts of our community come up with terms like content designer as a solution to the problem that writing is not taken seriously as a strategic discipline. But this term is neither accurate nor self-explanatory. It is just an artificial construct with which we try to sound more important, more versatile, more profound, more professional. I don't even know. But what I do know is that due to the fact that these terms are neither accurate nor self-explanatory, we may even cause more misunderstandings. For example, people who don't know that content design is supposed to be a synonym for UX writing might know the word content from a social media or marketing context, because that's where it originally came from. And these people might expect you to create social media content. And to be honest, looking at the mere meaning of this term, that would actually even be more accurate. So if we give ourselves this new job title to set the right expectations for our stakeholders about our responsibilities and our skills and our tasks, do we really solve the problem by choosing an alternative job title that is neither accurate nor self-explanatory and may cause even more misunderstandings? Now, here is my take on this. Of course, you can call yourself whatever you want as long as you and your professional surroundings have the same understanding of your role. You might even call yourself a word wizard or whatever, but I really hope that we can finally get over the urge of proving to ourselves and to others over and over again that UX writing is more than just putting words on a screen. Of course, we can educate people, but it is not our job to prove our value, especially not by coming up with weirdly constructed names just to make a point. Because you write words for interfaces and that is okay. And of course you have a strategy and you have a style guide and you have a concept for these words and the information that they should carry. And let me tell you, people who don't appreciate that skill and that job won't change their mind just because you change your job title. But what will change these people's minds? Because we don't only want to use this video to rant, okay? Now what I recommend is this. First, show your knowledge. And I don't mean give an official educative talk where you explain what you know about UX writing and good UX writing and so on, even though you can definitely do that, but this is something that you already know. You don't need me to tell you that. What I mean here is sprinkle your knowledge in team meetings and in tiny moments of collaboration. This is where you need to take the chance and let your real knowledge shine through. And my prime example for that is when one of our designers wrote an error message that says, "Oops, this page could not be found." And reading that, I tell my team that oops carries a lot of non-verbal meaning. It says we ourselves are surprised that something went wrong. It implies that we too might have lost control over the situation. It makes the situation overly playful and infantile. It's unprofessional. It is simply not a good choice considering all the meaning that this expression carries. And then my team usually goes, "I never really thought of it that way. I just thought it sounded nice." So yeah, that's why I got my seat at the table. That's why you need me on your team. Second, hold management accountable. You know, those people who decided to hire a UX writer, those people that said the team needed a UX writer, because I hope that during the interviews you had for getting the job in the first place, you clarified that your role involves strategy and research as well. And I hope that you and management agreed on that. And if you did, it is also up to your management to support you when your team only sees you as someone who writes words and who doesn't need to be involved in all the processes. Third, if you don't want to involve management right away, check your surroundings for allies. I remember one of my first projects as a UX writer at a UX agency, and that was a very difficult one because the client wasn't fully convinced that they needed a professional UX writer, and neither was my team. And also, there was a designer on the team who thought of himself as an absolutely great writer himself. So when he was producing the screen designs, he also wrote all the copy as well and handed it over to the client without involving me because that would just be too much of a hassle. And when I confronted that designer, he just said, "Oh, I didn't need you here. I consult you when I need you." Bro, trust me, these kinds of issues won't be fixed or prevented by you calling yourself content designer. Because you see, I've been there. So what I did in this situation is we had this amazing project manager, a young, ambitious, amazing project manager. She later even became the lead project manager of that agency. And friends, this woman didn't take any. And since she was responsible for planning my scope of work and planning my working hours for our clients, I came up to her and I said, "Look, I'm booked on this project to work for this client, but this designer writes all the copy himself. So what should I do?" And she said, "You asked me what you should do, you should give me a minute." Then she left the room, came back and said, "That problem is fixed." So ally support can look like this. Loud and strong and powerful, or it can just look like a colleague saying, we maybe should involve Kat here, maybe she knows about this. But you don't need to fight all these battles alone, okay? This is the message here. And ultimately, find your own balance between having a service mindset and having boundaries. Trust me, I know, especially in this video, I sound very assertive and confident, so especially today, but I have not always been. I have been the good girl and a people pleaser for the largest part of my life until I realized I was not a people pleaser, I was a pushover. Today, I set boundaries, I communicate boundaries, I protect my boundaries, and I leave people and jobs and clients that don't respect my boundaries. However, I still think my job and my purpose is to provide value by putting my knowledge and skills to good use. So there need to be a balance. And before I fight any fight, I first start to just show up with a service mindset and try to help wherever I can. I leave my ego at the door. I see what I can do for my team and I see how we can best collaborate. And sometimes that even means that I am not involved in all decisions. But when I see that people make stupid decisions about words and communication because they decided to not involve me, I'll probably tell them. So to sum this up, changing your job title, my friends, won't change anything profoundly, but instead changing your relationships, changing your attitude, and changing your standards will. So this is it for my rant. Sorry if this was a little more negative talk than you usually see here, or even though I'm not too sure about that. But I think we have to discuss these things, right? We have to question these developments and make our points passionately, okay? Because without passion, life is lifeless. But still, I want to end this video with something more positive, which is my call that please be confident in yourself and love your craft. Writing is one of the most beautiful, wonderful crafts in this world. It helps us to understand ideas, change our perception, switch perspectives, have faith. If you look into the history of writing, it has liberated people, it has united people, it has told the stories of our ancestors, which would have been long forgotten if it wasn't for writing. So I think these are quite good words to end this video. As always, make sure you also follow me on Instagram, where I share free tips and tricks about UX writing as well. And as always, keep on writing, enjoy the process, and I hope to see you sometime soon.